Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. If you want to insert your opinion, it's welcome. 800-288-9227, because I'm going to say some real abrasive things this segment. So just hold on. So Matt Gaetz is stepping down. This is the first L in the win-loss column for the Trump 2.0. And I think we probably can all assume together that this has something to do with the investigation that the House was doing into him. And this raises a lot of questions. Number one, the investigation, and legally speaking, everyone that goes out there and, or a few people that have gone out there and made some accusations against Matt Gaetz, someone's lawyer got to him. We saw Sonny Hostin a couple days ago have to read a prepared statement like a hostage victim saying Matt Gaetz was found no wrongdoing in the investigation or something to that effect. But the investigation hadn't been released. It's supposedly he paid girls for, carnal favors. The accusation is some of them were 17. Maybe some of them went across state lines. I don't know the details on the story. No one really does because it hadn't been made public. So we're just over here guessing. Well, it was bad enough that last Wednesday he stepped down from his seat in Congress. And we didn't know if that's because he was expecting to be attorney general, so he just wanted to go ahead and clear the road for the next guy, or because he was trying to duck accountability for this investigation going up against him. Understandable either way. But now he doesn't have either. Now he's not the appointee to be attorney general, much less attorney general, and he doesn't have a congressional seat. So he just, is he unemployed now? He's going to go fill out an application at the Soares and Stonebriar Mall. I mean, he's got nothing. And even if it is these sexual misconduct allegations, this is tiring. I understand the Me Too movement did a lot of good, and there's a lot of people who deserve to go down. Anybody who went to Epstein Island, they deserve to be destroyed. But this nitpicking people because they had an affair on their wife or because they did things that are legal but just icky, I don't like mixing the two. We didn't always, and I think we were better off when we didn't. Should we have kicked Ben Franklin out of the Constitutional Convention? Hey, you had an illegitimate kid with a prostitute, and then you paid her to go away. You married an ugly woman just for show so she could help raise your bastard son so you can continue going to sex parties in Paris and in London and even in Philadelphia, doing all kinds of nasty stuff, spreading all kinds of fun little diseases. Aren't we glad we didn't hold him to that standard? We might not have the Constitution we have today. We might have just a couple of little changes in the foundation of this country, and we would have collapsed in 70 years like so many of the other countries. How long did France's revolution at about the same time last? 10 years? 20 years? Before, or not even that, before Napoleon showed up and wiped it out, and they're like, please bring the king back. What about JFK? You probably know some of the nasty stories that dude did. I mean, we like to joke about how men of power like to sort of exercise that power. He took it to a whole nother level. Go do a deep dive in all the side stuff that he did. But aren't we better off that was ignored and we actually had a Democrat that was supporting civil rights, which enabled it to finally happen in the 60s? There's some pretty credible evidence that Martin Luther King had some serious issues with adultery. There were some FBI files released. I don't know if I believe them all the way, but there's evidence out there. Do we go tear down all the statues? Is that what we need to do? Do we need to go everywhere one of his sayings is like etched into a wall? We need to go chip that out of the wall. Matt Gaetz may or may not have been the best guy to be the next attorney general, but he's not going to be, and it has nothing to do with his ability. It has nothing to do with how he would govern, how he would use that power, the cases he would seek, the angles he would use on them, the effect it would have on the country. That's not what took him down, because he's a pervert. Great. Fantastic. So who's going to run the government then? How are all these other perverts in government? I just find this really disappointing. If you want to take the guy down because you don't like the way he governs or his interpretation of the Constitution is just intolerable, that's a worthy conversation to have. Some dude sleeping around on his wife. I think he was single at the time, too. Like, that's not even an adultery thing. It's just, I don't know, because he paid him. We don't know. We don't know the details of the investigation, but apparently it's something bad. I'm going to go ahead and assume it must be bad. And that brings up the next question. Did Trump not know about this when he nominated him? Trump didn't know this 2 weeks ago? He didn't know that there was an investigation out there. And okay, so of course he knew. He didn't go find some details. He didn't pull Gaetz aside and like, bro, did you do this? It's not a good look. I don't like the way it starts out. Your thoughts, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. What if I cheated on my wife? Would you still listen to my show? Let's ask Cynthia in Arlington. You're next up on WBAP. What do you think about this?
Hi there. I just wanted to mention that Gaetz resigned from the current Congress, but he was just reelected to his seat, so he could actually be seated in the next Congress.
Does it work like that?
So.
Oh.
And then.
Well, hang on. I was under the impression
whether or not they go ahead and release the report because they have jurisdiction again over him if he chooses to go back in. So that's another consideration.
He didn't last week, give up his seat.
Well, he gave up his seat in the current Congress.
Just for the next 2 months.
Was for the next Congress, right. So he can't vote or anything right now, but he can be seated in the new Congress because he was duly elected.
Well, now that's interesting. Well, that report can still come out and kick him in the teeth, I guess. But
absolutely. They would have jurisdiction again over him if he seats in the new Congress. Absolutely.
Well, that's interesting. Cynthia, I didn't see that in the couple of articles I read. So he told me something I didn't know. Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Thanks.
All right. You got any comments? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Should being a pervert get you kicked out the cabinet? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Matt Gaetz withdraws as being the nominee, the appointed Attorney General. Never even made it one day in office. And we all suspect, and probably rightfully so, that has something to do with this investigation into him, into sexual misconduct. And look, I hate to minimize sexual misconduct. And there's no but coming after that. I'm not saying but. I really do hate to minimize it. But there it goes. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a forcible rape? Are we talking about trafficking? Or are we talking about a guy who hooked up with the girl at a party and turned out she was 17? I mean, that's not a good look. It's not something I encourage in my attorney generals. Is that a deal breaker? I'd see that's the question. Should that be a deal breaker? And really, it's in the larger scope of things because we didn't used to care. Or maybe just when it's convenient, it gets thrown under the rug or ignored. But Ben Franklin had sexual peccadillos that would not survive such puritanical scrutiny. JFK, Martin Luther King. In our lifetime, Bill Clinton. Look at that guy. 23 women have gone on the record with their names, given testimony, accusing him of sexual assault or rape. That doesn't count the consensual affairs, the Jennifer Flowers and whatnot. That's just the assaults. That's the non-consensual stuff. Not an issue? No, he gets 2 terms, and then you go support his wife to be senator for a couple terms, and then you run her as president. No big deal. It never comes up. It's the damnedest thing. 800-288-9227. Should being a pervert get you kicked out the cabinet? What a weird question. John in Keller, you're on WBAP. What do you think, John?
Well, in addition to what the lady said before the break about him just being able to take his Senate seat that he just got elected to, the House seat he just got elected to, he might be appointed by DeSantis as being senator to replace Rubio. Plus, your question about being a pervert being kicked out, they had him FBI had him under an investigation, and they dropped those. So whatever it is probably not illegal, or they would have gone after him big time. And so it's probably more of an error in judgment and being a pervert or whatever, as opposed to anything that they could get him on for illegal. Being illegal.
I'm going to be a little bit more of a hard head than you are, John. The fact that the FBI dropped it, you're right, means there's nothing illegal there because they would have relished the chance to slap cuffs on this dude. So all this, the point of this House investigation is just to find these girls, have them come out and have them tell their story and have them be interviewed by CNN or MSNBC if they're still going to be around next week, and to generate negative headlines about the guy. And you know what, John? It just worked.
Yep. It did.
That sucks. See, I don't like that. I don't know how we fix that either. All right. Thank you very much. Let's take some more calls here. This will be Mike in Hazlitt. You're on the James Show on WBAP. What do you think, Mike?
Hey, James. I was pretty bummed to hear the announcement that he had withdrew because my first thought came to my mind was, look at Bill Clinton. And you stole some of my thunder because I was wanting to talk about that. But obviously, Bill Clinton, the biggest perv, yet he got elected to 2 terms, and the Dems just love him. But it just seems like if you're a Democrat and this goes against you, you're fine. But, man, if you're a Republican, here we come. Get your defenses up. And then Republicans cave. I can't stand that.
Well, let's not be that general. Let's have a little nuance and complexity here. It seems that Democrats can go down for sexual misconduct, but it's a selective enforcement. Now, what happened with Anthony Weiner? That's how he went down. No pun intended. That's just a great coincidence. Al Franken was just a victim of the Me Too movement, but they didn't rush to his defense, and the claims against him were pretty minimal. They're like he sexually assaulted a girl. Then you go read the story, and some girl he interviewed on his show in Air America, he like stood in front of the door and tried to kiss her, and she dodged and then walked around him and left. Like, that's not a sexual assault. That's a guy shooting his shot, and like if a girl tries to kiss me and I dodge, is she akin to a rapist? Oh my God, no. So yeah, there's a weird selective enforcement that's pretty insidious too. But generally speaking, I think you're right. That's a much bigger concern for Republicans than Democrats, because I don't know if you've ever heard the stories about Ted Kennedy and Chris Dodd and Barney Frank had the gay brothel going out of his house. No big deal there.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
And the senator right now, who was caught in having an affair with the Chinese spy.
Oh, Swalwell.
Yes.
Oh no, Swalwell. Yeah. That's the thing he's second most famous for. His most important contribution to the media landscape is when he ripped a big fart on an interview. God, it was a long one too. And then he did the guilty smile. Oh, that's one of the best viral videos from like 10 years ago. Thank you for reminding me of that. It's Mike and Hazlitt. I can squeeze in one more. Don't get mad at me, Garrett. This is David in Dallas. Hey, David, you're on WBAP. What do you think about Matt Gaetz stepping down?
Yeah, James, I think it's. I wish he wouldn't, to be honest. I think most of the things that they're trying to get him on, it's illegal. It's not illegal because they would have charged him, like the previous caller said. But the thing is sometimes they're just saying things that don't have to be true. They just have to say it, and it becomes true. And I think that's kind of a little bit going on here. And I don't think it's something that he should have stepped down for. He should have went through the fight and fought it. But I also think what John said, I think maybe there's a move behind the scenes to put him in that Senate seat that Rubio will be vacating in Florida.
Well, that might be making the best out of a bad situation, but I don't think that was a master plan, or they wouldn't have nominated him in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with that, James, because Trump, he doesn't do it. And so I wish we'd have went along with it, and I wish we would have fought alongside President Trump for him and let him go through the process.
Well, listen,
and see what happens.
One of the terrible effects of witch hunts like this is there's really good people out there that we need to run for office that aren't going to run for office because they don't want this to happen to them. Maybe they had an affair when they were like 24 and they were just out of law school, and no one knows about it. Their wife doesn't even know about it, and they would just get away with it, if it hadn't been for you snooping kids kind of scenario. And they don't want to be dragged through the mud. There's also guys who haven't done anything wrong in their entire life, and if you run for office, all they got to do is make up stuff. All they got to do is find a Christine Blasey Ford or E. Jean Carroll to say, oh, yeah, I was at some party, and him and his buddies drugged me and gang raped me, and I don't remember where it was or when it was or what day it was or what house it was, but everyone's going to believe me, and I'm going to get interviewed on every network, and you're just going to be known as a rapist from here on out. Brett Kavanaugh is still going to have that stain with him his entire life. People still call him that. Right, like right now, there's people on your social media feed over the trumped up charges against Trump saying, I can't believe you voted for a rapist. That's it. That's who you are. And that discourages a lot of good people from running for office. This is one of the reasons I don't want to run for office. They just make up all kinds of crap. Not putting my kids through that. Maybe when they're adults, you could talk me into it. But right now, no, don't want to mess with any of that. I don't want my kids going to school saying, hey, I hear your dad cheated with an underage girl and took her across state lines at a Florida party. Because that's the allegations against Gaetz. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Donald Kimball from Young Voices to talk about the other appointments and policy changes Donald Trump's proposing thus far. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Your top two stories of the day. I think the top story should be this whole Russia thing, but according to the news and the other outlets, between Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC, and most of the other websites that I visit on a regular basis, they think Matt Gaetz stepping down is the biggest headline. And I guess technically that's the biggest headline. Should it be? Is it more important than possibility of escalating into World War III? I don't know. I mean, The fact that there's negative news to talk about against Trump, I know that gets the MSNBC crowd so excited. And I know it gets the CNN crowd so excited. Even the Fox News crowd, they got to defend their guy. But I'm not sure that should be the most important story on the planet right now. Donald Kimball, my next guest, back on from Young Voices. In your opinion, what's a bigger story? What's more likely to have a lasting effect on the people that are listening to us right now? Escalating into World War III with Russia or Matt Gaetz stepping down?
Well, obviously, Matt Gaetz' story is sensationalistic, but it is temporary. I mean, by the very nature, it's temporary in that he's withdrawing his name from consideration, meaning he won't be relevant in, a week or two for that position. So clearly, the Russia problem is a much bigger deal. And I mean, you even look at the way that the story isn't blowing up. I believe it was last night, Rand Paul had introduced an amendment that would have basically prevented us from giving away our money to Ukraine again. And it was completely defeated by people of his own party who want to fund Ukraine and escalate tensions, even as we ourselves are in massive debt. And that's nowhere to be seen in terms of the news coverage and stories. So we're sending money to Ukraine. We're giving all this permission to increase tensions and aggressively use missiles and weapons. But it seems like people don't really care, which is kind of a sad state of affairs.
My goodness. So Matt Gaetz, we're probably not done with him. He's not going to be our next attorney general, but could he still come back to Congress and be a congressman or maybe be appointed to that empty Marco Rubio Senate seat?
It's difficult to say because there's a lot of possibilities as to why he stepped down. And depending on what the real reason is, it will change the shape of things. I think that regardless, I would think it's maybe implausible that he would be appointed to Rubio's empty spot only because of the massive amount of political capital that would take from Governor DeSantis, who may not want to spend it in that way. And I'm not even saying that as, a diss on Governor DeSantis, but just realistically speaking, Gaetz is a controversial pick. He's very, very popular among a lot of people, but he's also highly unpopular with a lot of people. And so appointing him into that seat might be just too high of a cost when he could, appoint someone who's not going to give him that much of a fight realistically and maybe not hurt his own approval numbers with some crowd.
Well, the other story that is getting a lot of attention, and while this kind of seems like it's not important, I think this is pretty important, the bathroom rules for Congress. The libertarian in me says, well, whoever owns the bathroom should make the rules. So I never really care about people who say that we should have like transgender bathroom bills or whatever. But this is a bathroom they actually own. And I think they have a right to have a debate about this. And what's her name? Nancy Mace. I know her name's Representative Mace, trying to keep the first transgender woman, which in real life is a dude, out of the women's bathroom. And boy, this has people boiling in D.C.
I think, the heart of where maybe the disconnect from most American people are is in D.C. And so seeing a major fight like this brew there makes sense. Now, that's not to say that this fight doesn't exist elsewhere. I mean, I'm in Washington State, so I clearly see a lot of people who feel passionately on one side of this. But I would say that the majority of Americans, they don't care how someone chooses to identify. But when they start invading a space that is set aside to keep women who are more vulnerable safe, and when they see that as an opportunity to take advantage, that's going to get them up in arms. And I think that, again, most of America does not want that to be the norm. And so, Representative Mace is sort of standing up for what I would think is probably a majority opinion across the states. But in D.C., that doesn't always ring very strongly, I don't think.
All right. Tell them where they can find your work outside of the James Show, Donald Kimball.
Yeah, KimballDonald.com or Kimball Donald at X. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Donald Kimball on the James Show. Howard Jones comes to Music Hall at Fair Park February 15th with special guest ABC and Richard Blade. Get tickets at livenation.com, or you can text Jones to 800-288-9227 for your chance to win a pair of tickets. Text Jones if you want to see Howard Jones. Text Jones to 800-288-9227 for your chance to win. Coming up next, we'll talk with Jeremy Rosenthal, my attorney buddy. A couple of stories got me scratching my head. I'll just run it by you. You can think about it on the break here. Laken Riley, her murderer, just got sentenced to life in jail. And then we also learned this week that Susan Smith, the woman who drowned her kids and then blamed it on a black guy who carjacked her, she almost got parole. That she was up for a hearing and they told her, no, you're going to have to stay in jail. Shouldn't she have gotten the death penalty? I think we need to hit the gas on the death penalty. If we're going to have the damn thing, let's use it. So I want to talk about that next. Expanding the death penalty. That's coming up on the James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you want to jump in on the conversation, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. The two biggest stories of the day are the continuing escalations, the tit for tat with Russia going back and forth. Matt Gaetz stepping down as Attorney General, or nominee to be Attorney General. And then also we have the weird situation concerning the bathroom rules at Congress. All of that's on the table. 800-288-9227. I'd love to hear from you about that because I'm going to ask my next guest about it. Debbie Schlussel's back on from the James Show. And listen, you're an attorney by trade, by practice. Your thoughts on Matt Gaetz stepping down as the nominee for Attorney General?
He absolutely had to, because he was going to go down in flames. There were not enough votes in the Senate, and the drumbeat was getting louder. I believe that ethics report was going to leak. I think it still will leak. I don't think it really matters even what was in the report, because we pretty much already know the outline of the contents and what the accusations were. I understand that President-elect Trump is trying to thumb his nose at Washington and the swamp, but I don't think that picking Matt Gaetz was the way to do it. I think he really was wholly unqualified. Another thing is he was just very controversial and did a lot of things that I think didn't help the Republicans and made a lot of people hate him.
Example.
Well, so for example, he brought a Holocaust denier as his guest to the State of the Union address. He was the person that single-handedly torpedoed Andrew McCarthy's House speakership. Now, I'm not a fan of Andrew McCarthy. Was Andrew McCarthy? Wait, what's his first name? I'm thinking of the actor, and that's not it. But, Speaker McCarthy, whatever his first name was, he was so memorable.
What was his name? Mike McCarthy?
Something McCarthy.
Well, there's two Andrew McCarthys. There's the guy that used to be the prosecutor, the guy who prosecuted the 9/11 mastermind, and then Andrew McCarthy from the Brat Pack. What?
Right.
Kevin McCarthy, thank you. Jesus God.
Kevin, yes.
Garrett did something useful. Thank you.
He was so memorable, I can't even remember his name. But he torpedoed him. I was not a fan of Kevin McCarthy, but what happened was embarrassing to House Republicans, because remember, they had, 20-something or 30-something votes before? It was a lot of votes. I don't remember how many, but he is the one that did that. He also was running around the floor of the House, according to Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, a staunch conservative, showing people videos and pictures of people he had sex with and bragging about. I mean, this guy should not be the Attorney General. And you also can't have a guy that's transporting underage girls, not only over state lines, but over international lines, and paying them for sex through. He's just a weird guy. He has this so-called adopted kid that's like maybe 10 years younger than him, maybe 15 years, I don't know, who was the brother of one of his previous girlfriends, and he used his Venmo account. This is not a person that should be Attorney General. He's kind of a man-child. He never had a job in his life. He just basically lived off his rich dad, and he's still doing that. So I don't think that guy should be Attorney General. You need somebody that's not a criminal, number one, and yes, I know he was never charged, but that doesn't have this kind of stuff surrounding him. You need somebody that's got gravitas and that is taken seriously. And this guy was like a clown. And no, he had the plastic surgery done that made him look worse, by the way. And he looked like the Joker. I just can't take the guy seriously. You saw the plastic surgery, right?
So how did he get the nomination in the first place?
He's very tight with Donald Trump. He was a Donald Trump loyalist since the very beginning when Donald Trump was first running for president. And in 2015 or 16, and and he's always been a Trump loyalist, and that's part of it. And I think part of it is just Trump wanted to thumb his nose at everyone. He doesn't want to go through the process that he did before and that is traditionally done, where you have an FBI background check and a vetting process, and it's there for a reason for stuff like this. And in his case with Matt Gaetz, we already knew most of this stuff. It's just like certain details. But I think, like, for example, in the case of Pete Hegseth, who I think is next, by the way, I don't think he's going to become defense secretary.
Ooh.
You know, I read that police report. It's not good for him at all. And I just think this is a mistake not to vet these people. There are plenty of great, serious conservatives who can run these departments, who can cut the fat, who can get rid of the government going after people for politics, who can do all of these things, and who can pass a background check, who can be taken seriously. Now, do I believe that the liberal media and the Senate Democrats are going to stand by and let a serious person go through? No, because they hate Trump and they hate anyone conservative, and they're going to go after them. But when you give them this kind of red meat to go after, you're setting yourself up for failure. And it's embarrassing if these are the first things that are happening before you're even sworn in.
Well, that's one of the criticisms against Donald Trump that it's hard to argue against in his first term. Look, he wasn't perfect. He made some bad appointments. Right.
And you know what? In those appointments did sail through. Why? Because many of them were liberal generals and things like that. These were swamp establishment people. And yeah, they passed the background checks. And yeah, the Senate went for them. The Senate Democrats went for them and so on. And those people didn't do a good job, and he had to get rid of them. But there are people who can pass the background check, who don't have all these very serious controversies, who are conservative and who will do the job. And I think there's a happy medium between the liberal general establishment people and the Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseths of the world. I personally don't think Tulsi Gabbard should be running the Department of should be the director of national intelligence, because I don't think you can have somebody that wants to pardon Edward Snowden, who divulged American and Israeli top secret information to the world and jeopardized our and Israel's agents around the world and our double agents and so on. You can't have somebody like that who wants somebody like that pardoned and thinks it's okay running that department. And Tulsi Gabbard, I know a lot of conservatives like her. They think she's a libertarian, but she really isn't. She's a liberal. She was a Bernie bro. I don't believe people do 180s like that. I believe they are opportunists who do 180s, not because they believe it, but because it's on which side their bread is buttered.
She's in this weird purple slice because when we were younger, our liberal friends didn't think men could have babies. Our liberal friends still thought, the border should be closed and a few other weird things. But they've alienated this. There is like a middle ground now. There's sort of that Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, Ricky Gervais, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK slice of purple that they're in. It's a whole new thing that's probably going to have to get its own label soon.
But is RFK really purple? I think he's a liberal. I remember only a few years ago when Michelle Obama wanted to tell us what should be in the school lunches, and we didn't want that. We don't want a nanny state. He's no different than her. The only difference is the vaccine stuff that he's against. That's it. And by the way, he's a hypocrite because he and his whole family are vaccinated. And I believe in vaccine freedom. I don't think you should force people to do that. But I just don't buy anything this guy is selling.
Fantastic. Where do they find you online, Debbie?
On Twitter, at Debbie Schlussel. On Instagram, at Real Debbie Schlussel. On Facebook, Debbie S. fan page. And if you don't know how to spell Schlussel, Google it. It's German for key.
Oh, I just learned that today. Also, Debbie, if you could share out to your tens of thousands of social media followers, I'm working on blessedbethefruit.org. This is going to be your home for Project 2025 implementation. So if you need to know which FEMA camp to go to or to where to get your Handmaid's Tale gown, or I'm going to add a link to the North Texas SPCA so you can adopt a cat. So go check it out. Let me know what you think. If you got any additions to it, I'd love to pick your brain on that one.
Cool, I will.
All right, blessed be the fruit.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you, too. It's the great Debbie Schlessel. All right, thanks again. Another round of applause. Studio audience likes when you fluff them a little bit. Can't blame them. All right, coming up next on the James Show. Listen, at any point you can jump in. I don't have to definitively ask you a question if you just want to jump in. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I want to go back to this restroom situation because I want to turn this on you now. You're like, who, me? Yeah, you. Would you have the guts to demand that rule in your workplace? If someone showed up and they wanted a guy going into the women's restroom, would you say anything? Or would you be scared for your job and just go along to get along? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. So Matt Gaetz steps down. Was this a mistake on Trump's part? I mean, why would he make this nomination? Did he not know that this was going to pop up? A lot of questions swirling around this. I would like to hear what you think. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Michael Granberry, you're on WBAP. What do you think, sir?
Excuse me. I think that Trump won the election, and he should get the nominees he wants. I wasn't thrilled with everybody he picked, but that doesn't really matter. When he was elected the first time, everybody said he didn't know what he was doing and couldn't be president, and he did a great job, and he wants to do a good job this time. And plain and simple, in my opinion, he should have the people he wants.
Yeah. Also, you're not concerned that they might have something on Matt Gaetz? I mean, if they're getting him to step down, that means the Senate hearing, either he knows he would fail or even if he would pass, he doesn't want all this to be on the public record. Doesn't that mean they have something on him?
It may. It may not. I mean, it's Washington.
It just stinks that this even matters, because what if he is the best guy to be attorney general, but he did, have sex with a 17-year-old? What would that be, 17 years ago when he was like 24? He's not even that old. It just, I don't know. It seems like, I don't want to minimize, the sexual perversions and things like that, but I'm glad we don't choose plumbers like this, right? Like, hey, I have my bathroom's leaking. I have like 2 inches of water in the master bathroom. Let's get a guy over here. Hey, you never had any like weird threesomes with high school seniors, have you? No, you don't. Just, do you know how to stop the leak?
Exactly. And the one thing I can say is if the Democrats are losing their minds over it and people in D.C. are losing their minds over it, then he's probably making some good picks because they're worried.
Yeah, right. That is a good sign. The people who get everything wrong, you kind of want to go where they're complaining the most. I like that. Michael and Granberry, thank you for calling. What he was saying kind of sounds like an email I got from Sylvia. She says, my assumption I had yesterday while I was at work may have proven true. Yesterday, you're talking to TV news channels not covering Ukraine escalation. I was thinking, I bet Newsmax is covering it. They have today. I have noticed these past few months, Newsmax had more world coverage than the others, even in the height of the election madness. Yeah. But the Matt Gaetz stuff, it had sort of the same response there. That's just really the most important thing going on. This really okay. So we just should let the government just keep doing what it's doing because we can't find a guy in there who's not spotless. I know, it's exhausting. I feel you. Thank you very much. And if you want to send an email, James@WBAP.com, James@WBAP.com.